All right. We are just about to go live. Well, I think we are live. Instagram is just connecting. Um, Hi, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday. Oh, no, wait. Definitely not the first Friday in November. Last week was the first Friday. I needed a breather. Okay. Well, guess what? StreamYard's having trouble streaming to Instagram. So today you might just see us on LinkedIn. Um, I'll try it again in a few seconds. But let's get going because we have a lot to talk about. I'm so excited for this series. This has been a long time in the making. So this month, we're going to talk about branding. It is one of those words that people use in a million different ways. I'm working on my branding. I need new branding. What do we mean by branding? We could mean a million different things, and therein lies the problem with the word branding. So today, we are starting this series from the very top with the branding expert, the brand CEO, Mallika Malhotra. She is, when I met her, I was like, oh my God, this woman like encapsulates what it means to help people with branding. Like that, like when I think of like, oh, someone needs like help with their brand, that's what I think of. You. um, so today we're going to talk about like really what is branding, why you need certain things in a brand before other things, and really set the stage for the rest of the series to understand how brand photography, copywriting, graphics, design all are part of the brand ecosystem. But before you put all those components of the ecosystem together, you need to talk with Mallika. So give us your background, and I will see if we can get to Instagram while you're telling the folks a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Lauren, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And it makes me so happy that when you think of branding, you think of me. So something is working. That's the whole point of branding, right? And so I'm a brand strategist. I'm a niche expert, and I work with female entrepreneurs who struggle with their brand. They struggle with standing out in their crowded marketplaces. They may have the skills, they may have an offer, they may have an audience, but for some reason, they're still being overlooked and underpaid. And so for me, that is a strategic brand problem. And so we need to get to the core of why that is, why your message is not resonating. Maybe you're not niche enough. Maybe you need some help with your positioning, and maybe your brand strategy is just off. And so you kind of have to go back to the foundation, which is what we're going to talk about today a lot. So I'm so happy to be here to talk to you about branding and your audience. How can we get started?
Yeah, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. What is branding? And guys, like imagine me saying that like in capital letters, like what is branding? Like a Jerry Seinfeld type of like question. Like obviously we all have a general sense, but tell us from your expertise perspective, what is branding?
So people will think branding is your logo and your colors and your pretty fonts. And while those are part of branding, that is not really what branding is. Branding is the impression that you are making in your customer, your prospect, your community, your audience's mind, right? So when they hear your name, Lauren Perna, what are the feelings? What are the words, the associations that are coming up when they hear your brand name? It is everything from your vibe, your voice, your values, all of those things that are creating this picture of what the brand is to build the reputation. It is a misconception when people think, oh, your brand is your logo, because that is very two-dimensional. Your brand is dynamic, right? It makes you feel something. It makes you think something. It makes you feel in alignment or not with that business. That is what a successful brand should do.
And I think yeah, once upon a time when I was like talking about it, I called it a vibe because your vibe is fluid. It is always changing. And I think that's one thing people probably worry about when it comes to branding. Is it okay for that brand, that emotion, that feeling, the vibe to change over time. And I'm assuming that's why people think of it as a logo, because you can easily change your logo. But people probably don't understand you can still change all the emotions. But what does something like that look like? What would you say to somebody that comes to you and is like, I am portraying, a super fun party girl brand, and now I'd like to move into the mommy blogger. Like, is that possible? Because I think that's probably part of people's confusion is like branding, like you said, is two-dimensional. It is one thing or the other.
Yes. I mean, of course, your brand will evolve over time. Marketplaces changes, technology changes, your ideal client may shift. You as a person might have a new season of business, right? But we want to be careful. We don't want to be, ever changing. What is the new flavor of my brand this week versus next week? Because a confused mind never buys. What you're trying to build is a cohesive and consistent brand that builds trust, that people can rely on, that they know that you are going to deliver that transformation on repeat. And you're going to create a full experience. So every touch point is integrated into what you want the brand to be. And that's where the work happens, right? That's where you're shaping and defining what the brand is. I think often when we are starting out, we are just diving headfirst and looking at what everyone else is doing and reacting to what clients want. But we haven't been strategic. We haven't asked ourselves the hard questions. And that's why you might feel like you're not connecting with your clients. That may be why you're changing your logo every 3 months, because you haven't built that solid foundation.
So, how do you build that solid foundation? What is that hard work? What are the questions that you are asking people? Because I am assuming the other part of the reason that people just dive right into the text and the fonts and the colors is because that's easy to that's easy enough to, like you said, go on someone else's page, go through Canva, see what colors you like.
Right. And that's the fun stuff. That's the sexy stuff. Oh, the colors and the fonts and all that. But how do you know what colors and fonts are going to resonate with your brand unless you've asked yourself, what do I believe in? What do I stand for? Who am I meant to serve? How am I different? Strategic, deep, self-discovery questions, right? That's going to help shape the foundation. How are you going to know what your website looks like or what brand photos you need to take until you get clarity on the core? What's my mission? What's my vision? What's my values, right? And so that's where the work has to be done. And it's hard work. It's not like done in a night. It's a process. Sometimes you need a mentor. Sometimes you need a group of, other women in a networking group or to help you sort of peel the layers and dive deep into that. But if you don't ask yourself those hard questions, what happens is your brand can look like everybody else. It can be too generic and you're not seen as an expert or a leader or an authority. Your prices become, low because you're looked at as a commodity instead of as a specialist. So branding is definitely something you want to invest in the beginning or the early stages of your business so that you have the clarity, you have the confidence, and you're building that trust with your audience.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. But it definitely sounds not as much like the type of branding that like Laura or I would do. It sounds much more like soul searching a little bit, right? Do you ever find yourself feeling more of like a life coach or business or therapist in this process?
I mean, there are pieces of that, but I do know what my lane is, and my lane is definitely strategy and like very results oriented. But there is mindset issues, right? Of like, how can I use that, piece of my experience in my brand? That's too personal, or, I'm afraid to call myself an expert. Meanwhile, these women have hundreds of clients, years of experience, and they just can't kind of see their skills and their strengths. They're just sort of in the weeds of the, the daily actions of the business. But it's important. It's important to do that work. And I have a whole process that I bring my clients through so that they get that clarity and confidence. And it's a game changer because once you have it, not only can you then build the team that are going to know what your brand stands for and then execute even better copy, even better web design, even better brand photos, right? You're also going to be able to step out and sell better and show up better
Yes.
and connect with your clients better.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look at my journey and I think, and I, know branding as much as the next marketer, but even me, the clearer I got, the more work I did, I can like almost remember the shift when I went from, and I think for me, a lot of it was just confidence, and really taking a step into an area that wasn't really, I wasn't planning on being an entrepreneur so soon in my career. Um, so I can really remember that mindset shift going from like, oh, I just, want to make money, help people tell stories to, yeah, what we do is tell stories for life science companies, and we are experts. And once I narrowed down on my niche, really focused on the things that I love doing and I'm great at, and really brought my kind of superpower to the forefront, I definitely, the confidence just followed. You can't really just like wake up one day and be like, I'm a specialist. It
Right.
is that
Takes time.
slow work. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your Bullseye process. Obviously, without giving away the farm, but tell us a little bit about this process that you have trademarked.
Yeah. So I love that you've niched your brand because we're in alignment, right? It is a game changer for your business. And I do believe that is a strategy that almost 90% of businesses should use. There are some people that don't want to do it, but also if you are a solopreneur, it just makes everything streamlined and
So
simple
much
and
easier.
specific. And so I take my clients from feeling like this generalist to becoming this specialist, this expert. And so I have 4 sort of stages to my Bullseye branding formula. And the first is to first specialize. Looking at your skills and your strengths, looking at what your reputation is built on, looking at what offers are actually selling all of the time, and doing that work to say, I'm going to put a stake in the ground and say that this is my area of expertise. So instead of being a Jane of all trades, I'm actually going to be an expert and introduce myself as I am the go-to brand expert for female entrepreneurs who want to niche their brand. That is my statement, right? And the power behind that makes you memorable. That makes you
Yeah,
referable, right? And
that's
findable.
exactly it.
So
Um,
specialize is the first step.
And what would you say? I was about to write it down because I was like, I don't want to forget this question. One thing that I see a lot, and a lot of times when people come to me to write their LinkedIn bio, the one question I get is like, but I have like multi passions, I do multiple things. Um, how do you deal with
Yeah.
that? And I can tell you a little bit about how I've married the two parts of myself, but I would love to hear your thoughts because I'm assuming that's a big question you get, especially if you're working with multi-passionate,
Yeah.
super driven, busy women.
Yeah. Multi-passions don't like me very much because I
Oh
really, I
no.
really try to have them be more single-minded. And so, I think sometimes being a multi-passionate, it almost is linked to a confidence issue because
Mm,
it's easier to do all the things. It's easier to dabble in all of the things, but it's much harder to put your stake in the ground and claim a lane and saying that this is my space, this is my power, and this is why you should come to me. And so I really try to dive deep on why are you trying to be a multi-passionate? And let's look at the data. Is the data supporting you to be a multi-passion, or is the data telling you you actually should be in this lane, but you are not paying attention to the data for
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
right? And then if there's still pushback, then how can we take your passions and really try to package it in a way so that it makes sense to your client? Because your client isn't buying from you because you are multi-passionate. Your client has a problem and they want a solution. So is the multi-passion part of the toolkit that helps you get the solution? And so it's really trying to package that multi-passion, the hyphenate, I call them, because they have all these different things that they're good
Yeah.
at, and doing it in a way that is not confusing and very clear and provides a benefit to the client. So, asking yourself, like, really, is my artistic background beneficial to my client who is buying from me? Is, you know, my skills as a realtor 10 years ago, you know, relevant to what I'm doing now, right? So, and these are, you know, extreme examples, but, you know, asking yourself those hard questions, because you might be really shaping a brand that's more confusing, and you could be leaving money at the table because you have this feeling that you need to be multi-passionate.
Yeah, and it's so funny because you nailed it exactly how I decided to kind of marry the two parts of myself, and you know the two parts of myself are pretty closely aligned. So I obviously didn't have as hard of a time as somebody that is maybe has two extreme parts of themselves, a accountant that loves painting like or something. For me, I write for life science companies and kind of executives. And I'm also a mental health advocate. So the way that I've married it is I tell my own authentic story, enabling me to tell your authentic story. I know what it's like to tell an authentic story. And ultimately, I tell my story to improve human health, and the clients I work with are improving human health. I mean, obviously oversimplifying.
But there's a common thread that makes sense. And that's what it is in the multi-passions. Is there a common thread that makes sense? Maybe one of your passions is more of the brand personality that you bake it in there. Maybe some of your passions is the audience that you decide to target, right? So there are different ways to strategically do it. The way you don't want to do it is by this kitchen sink approach where you're talking about all the different things and nobody understands what you do.
And I always try to think about it from an outsider's perspective is how would I feel if I was trying to hire a graphic designer that said, graphic design, Excel spreadsheet expert. Honestly, I'm probably going to move on to the next person because
100%.
That feels a little weird. And if you think about it too, you are really, when you are doing something like that, you are the people that somebody is going to like, oh my God, what's Lauren doing next? Like, what else does she have in there? Why is she doing XYZ? And it's not because people are hating, it's just human nature. People are looking to understand who you are. And when you do things so far off, you're confusing them.
Yeah. I think a lot of people love this multi-passionate because they don't want to get bored, right? They don't want to be put in a box. That's what I hear a lot. But the way I see it is, if I can be a master, if I can be that go-to sought after expert, and I can create a process that gets amazing results on repeat and be in my zone of genius, right? To be in that excellence and flow, like I want to be in that box. That's fine because I can go deeper and I can have more impact and I can be known and I can, avoid getting burnt out and avoid feeling scattered and just be in that really, amazing level of excellence. And that is contagious. People want to hire and work and be surrounded by people like that.
I love that. And do you think it's a little bit too, people are scared when you become an expert, you do have to kind of let some clients go if you have been doing this kind of multifaceted, let me, take what I can get. I'm assuming that's a big piece of it is being like, I gotta let these people go.
And it can be gradual. It doesn't have to be black and white and you cut everyone off. It can be gradual. But so what I say also is, so I have this Bullseye Branding Formula, right? Which we talked about specialize, but there's also specify your audience, there's your standout quality, and there's your solution. Those are the other three. But, you have the center of the bullseye, but there are rings around it. And so the rings are the other non-targeted clients that may come your way because they like your vibe, because somebody heard about you, word of mouth. And then it becomes your decision if you want to work with them. You're not creating messaging for that outlier. You're not creating an offer for that outlier. You are protecting your energy, protecting your expertise for your specific niche, but other people still might be interested, and then it's your choice.
Yep. And that's exactly why we will work with like entrepreneurial clients or Women's Business League. You guys know I'm a
Yep.
huge fan of Women's Business League or my other networking groups, because those fill my soul. And that's exactly what I tell people, like, oh, are you sure I'm your client? Because the great news about being an expert is then if you do such a good job, people will be like, oh, you sure you want to work with me? I honestly think that's a great feeling, because you've done such a great job at narrowing down your specialty that people are like, oh, you sure? And I'm always like, yes. Yeah, not always, but when it's somebody in this women's business world, unless it's really far off, like, if you're like a hairstylist, that's probably just out of my realm of knowledge. But, anybody that's kind of more in a service-based business, I usually do work with, because it just fills my soul. And, no, my marketing is not targeted to them.
Right.
But at the same rate, maybe they'll still find value in my content online, and that's great.
Right.
But so tell me, why should somebody work with a person like you or you before they hire somebody like me or Laura, or next week we're talking to Andrea, the brand photographer? These are all pieces, you guys, that obviously you need, but why is it important to start with you first? And I want to make sure we dive into the conversation we were having right before we went live with you guys. So
Yeah.
your knowledge.
So you need to build the foundation first, right? It's like you need to be the architect first on what the core of the brand. You wouldn't hire a builder or interior designer before you built the foundation of your home. So you need to ask yourself, right? Who are you? Who do you serve? How do you serve them? How are you different? Getting very clear on those answers so that you can develop this blueprint of what you want your brand to be. And then once you feel good about that and have clarity, then you can inform the people on your team to start, demonstrating that brand in different ways, through photography, through web design, through graphic design, through copywriting. But it would be a disservice if you didn't do that work, because you're not giving them any guidance. How are they going to use what words are they ever going to use about your brand if you're not telling them what the essence of the brand is, what the personality of the brand is, what the voice of the brand is? And that's all part of the strategy. And so save yourself some money here, right? Because you don't want to hire someone prematurely and pull that trigger, because it is the fun, creative part, right? You want to first do the work on your strategy so that you have even better web design, even a better logo and better photos and better copywriting. And it won't sound generic. It will sound specific to you and will tell a better story for your client. So this is a mistake I see often, is that you start your business and you go straight to those fun, creative things. And I'm not diminishing the importance of them. They are very, very important, but you want to first start with your strategy.
And so do you hear a lot, crap, I just paid for a logo, I can't redo it? Do you hear that type of
usually what I hear is, crap, I have to change my logo again because it doesn't really reflect what my brand is, or it doesn't resonate with now who I figured out who I want to serve. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I have to change my copy again on my website because I just figured out what my niche is, and the copy is so generic and it's not talking to anyone. And now I have to hire someone again to do it.
That happens.
Yeah, it happens, right? So those are the things that I hear. And so you want to just make sure that you're doing the work first so that you can, when you're making those big investments, they are good investments and they're going to be grounded in strategy. I used to be a brand photographer. Okay. And so I used to do this whole long process of getting to know my clients before I took out my camera, because how could I take photos of them if I didn't know what their mission or their values or who their client was? Your storytelling has to reflect your strategy. So it's very important to start with strategy.
And I think, the thing that I tell people too, like, it is okay if you go into this and you have, the first logo I had now is just totally not reflective of my brand now, and I redid it. But that's why when you're starting, like, don't spend a lot of money. Like if you were just trying to get something out there and you need to build a business in order to work with someone like Mallika, that is fine. Don't worry about that. We're just saying don't make the big investments. Don't, do the big things until you've been in business for a couple of months, until you've really, gotten your feet wet, and then you're ready to go to Mallika and understand, where you want to focus, and she's going to help you with that. Then you can go to me, Laura, Andrea, because I think people think it needs to be perfect, but
Yeah.
you just gotta
It's
get
never
there.
perfect. And there's no shame in the game. We've all started out and invested in websites and done all the things and then changed it and changed it. I'm guilty of this too, and I'm a branding person.
Exactly.
But moving forward, if things aren't working, before you book that photo shoot or hire that web designer, just take a step back and go back to that core. Is it clear? Does it resonate? Is it in alignment with who I am now and my expertise and the work that I want to have done? And then if you can answer those questions and put it in a strategic document that then you share with your team, your creative team, it will even be better. The deliverables, it'll even be better.
And that is exactly what happens for us is, if we come in and a company has a document and they're just looking for some fresh copy, we have our own process that we're always going to do. But for a team that has that document already, honestly, it's not that it makes our lives easier, it makes your deliverables that much better. Because
Yes.
we know the questions to ask your clients when you're kind of loosey-goosey,
You're
we're
making
asking.
it up.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going on the fly. You may not be asking your clients the right questions because I don't even know what, it's not because I don't know how to do my job. It's because you haven't told me who you are. And
Right.
what's going to happen is what's happened time and time again is people come back 6 months later. They're like, oh, we have a whole new thing. We don't even do that anymore. It happens.
It does.
So
Yes.
that's why I always try to pre-qualify my my clients to make sure that they do have a good idea, because I don't want to provide copy that you're going to have to change in 6 months. I want to provide you with a solid deliverable that you're going to be able to use until maybe a couple of years, and then we can zhuzh it up.
Yeah.
You add a new service offering or something, or you add a new team member. But it's definitely, it happens. And I think, it's all a learning process. So what else? The other question I had is like, how can it set you apart from the competition? But I think we've talked about that a lot, but any kind of like final words of encouragement that people are listening to this, or companies that are trying to decide what to do. Why is this going to really separate you from the competition?
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, all of us are in crowded marketplaces, right? We all have similar offers, the same types of features and the functions. Like, let's just be honest, right? So the way that we're going to stand out is by taking all of our expertise and our values and, the things that we believe in and our experiences and packaging it in a way that will tell a story to differentiate us, right? And it's important to have that brand so that we are not blending in, that we're standing out from the noise, and we're communicating with clarity, like, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, and this is how I'm different. I always say branding is almost like this invitation that you're holding up and you're saying, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I believe in. And if you are in alignment, come on over and work with me, right? And so if you're not providing that, people are not going to know, right? And so they might go to somebody else. And when you can create a powerful brand and get known for your expertise, then you're able to raise your prices and you're able to get more opportunities in terms of visibility and podcasts and speaking gigs, right? You're able to just really stand out and build a very healthy and profitable brand. I mean, look at, brands like Starbucks, right? Starbucks, it's coffee.
Yeah.
And we spend 4 times as much. We use their vocabulary, venti, tall, whatever, right? Because it's a branding thing. We've become immersed in their brand. We have
Exactly.
Apple, right? Apple, we will stand on lines that are like 5 days long for the newest device, and we will spend whatever it is. It will never go on sale, but we'll still spend because of the power
Crazy.
of the brand.
Yeah, it's so true. And I want to call out that this is applicable to whether you are that, woman entrepreneur that Mallika works with, or whether you are a large life science company that I work with. I can't even tell you how many times I've been working with a life science company that their header on their website is a biotech company focused on making patient lives better, something like that. It is, how are you going to get the funding to bring your technology to clinical trials, to get in front of the media, if that's your tagline?
Right.
And obviously super oversimplifying, but I have so many times I have seen very generic taglines. So don't, if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, well, maybe that's just for service providers or, solopreneurs, like, absolutely not. And you have experience in some of the largest brands, right? And this is something that obviously you've acquired over your career. Correct? You worked for like L'Oreal and.
I mean, I worked in advertising on big brands like that, but I'm telling you, the same strategies that we worked on those big brands, I'm using for solo female entrepreneurs, like health coaches and interior designers and nutritionists and photographers, right? It's all about standing out, connecting with your customer quickly, and converting them to become your customer. So everything applies. It's just that we're small solopreneurs and those
Exactly, yeah.
big box companies, but it's all the same. It's about creating a campaign that convinces people to work with you.
And on that note, mic drop. And I just wanted to call that out because I realized that people may think like, oh, this is really for people in, service providers, crowded markets. And no, it's really not. It's really for anybody. And, that's why people like us are here to help you discern those insights about yourself, your brand, your company, your team. Mallika, where can people find you?
Yeah, so would love for you to find me at thebrandceo.com. I just rebranded myself, right? So, and that's my new brand,
cool.
The Brand CEO, and would love for you to check it out. New website, and I have a new mastermind launching next year. So would love to invite your community to check that out as well, called Brand Breakthrough Mastermind.
Ooh, I love it. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week with Andrea to talk about, all right, Mallika told us everything that we need to get started. Now you realize you need brand photography. Andrea is going to help us walk through everything that Mallika said, putting that into photographs. So should be good. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.